Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our side series on a technicality. What we're going to be talking about today is how to clean your cartridge-based games, as well as how to repair any traces that break. And I have noticed that in some cartridge games, NES games, Super Nintendo games, and Nintendo 64, some of the traces like to wear away because of the cartridge holder. What we're going to do is we're going to pop open this Duck Hunt and Mario cartridge, and I will tell you before we start, this is broken. One of the chips is bad, and because it's a glop top, there's nothing we can do about it. So anything I'm doing to this is just for demonstration purposes. Pop your screws up there so you don't lose them. But taking a look at the cartridge itself, everything looks pretty clean. We want to take a look at the pins below, those little pads there, because you can see a little bit of wear on those. So what we do is, just to start, when you're trying to clean a non-working cartridge, we'll come in with some IPA, isopropyl alcohol, and a Q-tip, and we're just going to clean those contacts, because any sort of debris on them, any oxidization, that's going to cause the cart to not have a good contact with the pins in the console itself, and it can be as simple as that when your games aren't working. But it can be much more complex, so we're going to talk about that as well. But as we wipe down those pads, you're going to see that they become a little bit shinier. But if we want to get a little bit more off, we can just take a pink eraser and run that over the pads. You don't want to go too crazy, but it is a good method to try to lift up a little bit more of that grime if IPA isn't working. And then we'll just come in, clean it off with the IPA, and you're going to see that compared to the pads on the right, they're much shinier and much cleaner. But if that's not working and the cartridge still isn't doing anything, your last resort is a fiber optic brush. Now this is quite abrasive, and you need to go really light on it, because if you rub too much, you will rub the copper right off those pads and it will not work anymore. But you just lightly brush it with that fiber optic pen, and then you go ahead with some isopropyl alcohol, and we've roughed those contacts up enough that if they weren't making good contact at this point, they absolutely would be. But I can't stress enough, the brush is very abrasive, so go easy, and you'll see all the grime in that black area that the brush took off. Now the second thing I've noticed a lot of is, based on how they retain the board in the cartridge, some of these traces at the bottom will actually get rubbed on until they're worn through and broken. Now we're doing it with an X-Acto knife, and we've actually severed the trace right there. So continuity is dead. If we come in with a multimeter, you're going to see that there is no continuity between the pad and that via hole, because we've effectively severed it with that X-Acto knife. But this is repairable. What I like to do is come in with some solid core wire. This is 22 gauge. It might be a little bigger than I needed, but it worked for the project. I'm going to go ahead and cut it just a little bit bigger than I need. What we need to do is scrape back the solder mask, because you can't actually solder to that. That green layer is protecting it. So using the tip of the X-Acto and being very careful, you want to scrape back until you just expose the copper underneath, because that's what we're going to be soldering to, so we need to make sure it has a good surface area. But I can't stress enough, don't take too much of the mask back, and don't scrape the copper too much, because we don't want to remove the copper, we just want to expose it. It's a light touch, you can't put it back on, so just take your time and go slowly. And now you'll see that that copper trace is completely exposed, and we have the break in there where we use the X-Acto knife. But now if we check continuity on the area that we've exposed, you'll see that continuity goes all the way down to the break, and then in front of the break, it also is exposed, and we also have continuity. So we know what we need to jump. And before we would solder this, I like to just clean it up with a little IPA to make sure the surface area is perfectly clean. Now I severed another trace in the back of the board because it was easier to photograph, and I wanted to show you how I do it. So taking a look here, I've got a couple solder blobs on the area that I exposed, because if we take these two pads right here that do share continuity, they don't. It's not beeping. But what we're going to do is take that little bit of wire, and we're going to put our soldering iron here, heat it up, and we're going to advance the wire in. We're not going to try to drop it in, we're just going to push it in. And then what we're going to do is just come in with our side cutters and cut the little bit of excess off, because we don't want it to bridge anything else. But we advance that little bit of wire in there, that solid core wire, and now when we take the multimeter out, we're going to see the continuity has been restored to the two areas that we cut. And this would effectively repair the cart if that in fact had broken. And you can see here, just another angle, the area that I didn't clean versus the area that I cleaned above, and we do have continuity all the way across. And this is an effective way to repair cartridges if they have broken traces. You can repair PCBs this way if they have a broken trace. And at the end, I just like to come in a little IPA, make sure any of that resin core solder that I use, all of it's cleaned up so it's not sitting on the board, and just make sure that the terminals are clean, all those pads are good to go, and this will restore a broken cartridge, because I've seen maybe 3 or 4 cartridges come in where it was worn through. Pop the back on, pop the screws in, and you have a fully working, well in this case it was broken beforehand and it's never going to work again, cartridge that you can use. But that's kind of how you clean your cartridges with IPA, with an eraser, with a fiber optic brush, and how you repair traces. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, helps us out. We'll be back on Sunday with another video, and Tuesday with another mainline video as well. But we hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, bye-bye.